You sure? Are you sure you? I'm okay. I'll kind of tell you what it's about. So when I started writing this song, I did not like the idea of writing a love song. I didn't want there to be, because Ransom was such a silly, goofy love song that was going to be the single for this first EP. So I was like, Spence, that's the only like love song. Well, I guess Where the Wind Blows, kind of a love song too. Well, that theory doesn't really hold. Anyway, when I was starting to write FMC, I wanted to. I was just thinking about what songs I could write, and what songs I was kind of like, what my options were in terms of song topics. And that's actually what the song is about. It's V meta, V inception. So essentially there are 3 verses, right? And each verse, the character is kind of supposed to be representative of a type of song I could be writing about, I guess. So we have this first verse that comes a maiden shoulders laden with her own she cannot write. How in sweeter than you else name am I supposed to sleep tonight? So it's kind of about like, I had seen all kinds of female artists because I was really, really inspired when I first decided to pursue art, like full-time, professionally. There were just all these female artists in my life, that Alicia Keys being one of the big ones, that I was so enamored by, and I saw a lot of them kind of writing heartbreak songs or breakup songs. I know, not to say, like, got male artists do this as well, and non-binary artists, you know, everybody writes breakup songs, but something about the woman, comes a maiden, shoulders laden, with a wrong she cannot right. So comes a maiden, comes some girl who, you know, is dealing with something mentally or emotionally or romantically that she just doesn't know how to deal with. So that's kind of the rabbit hole that verse 1 is about. And then you hop over to verse 2. Comes a man with scars bone deep and a conscience far from clean, though he wore them proud and spoke rather loudly of things I'd never seen. So I was listening to some Bob Dylan around this time as well, and I was reading Born to Run, that Bruce Springsteen book that he wrote about his whole career and coming up story. And of course Bob and Bruce and, you know, plenty of musicians kind of in that older era have a lot of songs about just manhood and like masculinity in a creative profession, and loneliness in masculinity. I thought was a really cool theme, especially in Born to Run is such a cool book. I recommend it 13 out of 10 to anybody who wants to get to know at least, you know, what the industry used to be like back then, and a lot of it still rings true today. So comes a man with scars bone deep and a conscience far from clean, though he wore them proud and spoke rather loudly of things I'd never seen. You see, tales like his make the world go around, for not even I'm immune to the pain of a life well lived, hiding under a Sunday tune. Not even I'm immune to the pain of a life well lived, hiding under a Sunday tune. Pain makes good art. It's really sad. It's like probably the hardest thing I think for most artists to come to grips with. It's actually what the coloring book is about, that song I wrote. It's such a strange profession to try and make a living off of your vulnerabilities, right? It's like, let's dig into the gunkiest, nastiest gutters of your psyche and your ego, and let's try and package that up with a good melody and some harmonies, and let's try and sell it to people. Like, that's not a recipe for good mental health. I don't think I don't think anybody could really argue like this is a particularly healthy line of work to be in mentally. So anyway, that was kind of my thoughts on it. Was verse 2 was like, okay, verse 1, I could write a song about, you know, romantic troubles or about women. And then verse 2, I could write a song about my own troubles, or I don't know, the scars that I have that are bone deep. And then we go, what is the chorus about, actually? That's a good question. Forgive me just the yesterday's breath, all I can afford today. Brother, you make that, don't let the man go back. Like the general gist it was so metaphorical. And like, I've come a long way, I think, as a writer in not reaching so weirdly far for these odd metaphors, because even I forget them years later, right? But I think it was basically like, yesterday's bread is all I can afford today. It's the way the songs I've listened to growing up as a new songwriter, those are the only songs I'm ever going to be able to write right now. So forgive me, just yesterday's bread is all I can afford today. It's kind of like yesterday's songs are all I'm going to be able to write right now, you know, because I was very new to songwriting and I was extremely nervous about it. And I didn't, yeah, I mean, that's a whole different story, I guess, of how I got into music and how nervous I was about playing music for people early on. Am I schwitzing like 3 hogs right now? The answer is yes. Also, I don't know what the lighting situation is like. Let's see if we crank that up a little bit. Maybe that's better. Yeah, and then we got verse 3. Comes a boy with rips the cage of a beast I cannot tame. Though the lines on his face left no space for a stranger to write his name. So this was, I was thinking a lot about, like, okay, how do hip-hop artists write songs, right? And I think hip-hop is very rooted in, a lot of hip-hop music is rooted in, like, kind of rags to riches stories, or rags to rags stories, or I don't know. I mean, it's, that whole genre is so centered around coming from very little. And I knew I was never going to go near that with a 10-foot pole, because I was so fortunate and I'm very privileged to, you know, not grow up in the situation that a lot of hip-hop artists have, or at least a lot of, you know, big mainstream hip-hop artists have. So I there was like a half a day where I was very disappointed that I would never be able to write a song. I thought to myself, like, man, I'm never gonna get to write a song about how hard like the things I went through as a kid. And now, of course, I see that that's not the case. But at the time, I was very much like, Spence, you are too privileged to even, like, don't even go there. Like, you know, you have other stuff to say. You have other waters to sail through. So that's kind of the third verse, right? Comes a boy with ribs that cage of a beast I cannot tame. Though the lines on his face left no space for a stranger to write his name. I'm a stranger to the roots of a lot of hip-hop artists and a lot of hip-hop artistry. And there's no room for me to write my name on any of that material, you know. Days and nights I sat with the boy, not for lack of attempt did my pen stay dry, and the story remained the same. Hey, give me just a steady spread is all I can afford today. Ooh, brother, you ain't tight, don't let the money go that hiding on days of sins right away. Brother, you hang tight, don't let the money go that by. And I'll chase the sinners away.